Hello, good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, depending on where you are. Afternoon here. Good afternoon. We're going to begin now on 12th night, or what you will, week 2. Okay, so before we jump back into the action, we're very familiar with the characters now, and it's fun to examine their names and why they might have the names that they have. Viola, start right there, nearly being an anagram of Olivia. They're very similar, aren't they? They've both lost a brother. They're both the object of Orsino's affection at different points in time. The whole play is about, swapping roles and things being mixed up together. So a little bit of swapping one out for the other here. In the name as well. It obviously connotes musicality. Viola is an instrument, and violets were also flowers that were used in hangover cures. Olivia is the olive being a sign of peace, extending an olive branch to somebody, that sort of thing. Orsino means bear in Italian. Little bear, it means little bear. And bears were associated with extreme melancholy, so that kind of makes sense for our mopey duke. Toby Belch, a Toby jug, was a pottery beer mug that was made in the form of a seated person. Kind of fits him. And, of course, Belch, his last name being a synonym for burp, as we know. Antonio comes from St. Anthony, and he is the saint of lost things, which is interesting that he's the one who saves and finds Sebastian. And Malvolio literally is Latin for bad will or bad wants. It also has a little bit of Olivia in it too, which is interesting. And then just for fun here on the right, we've got Dame Judi Dench playing Viola in 1969 because she did, and she's amazing. Amazing. Okay, back to the action. So, Act 3, Scene 2. When we last left everybody, Olivia had declared her love for Cesario. We saw Olivia practically throwing herself at poor Viola / Cesario. And Viola doing her best to try and explain to her why she could never return her love without giving herself away. When Viola does escape and flee Olivia, Olivia seems, more determined than ever to win poor Cesario's affections. So anyway, we return to Act 3, Scene 2, to our fun, goofy drunkards here. And Sir Andrew comes in and he's very upset because he saw that whole interaction, or at least part of it, between Viola and Olivia, and says, "Toby, your niece is not into me at all. I'm leaving. Like, this is, And of course, Sir Toby does not want him to leave because he's the one providing for this giant party that Toby is having and fully enjoying. And so he's like, no, she was trying to make you jealous, that's all. And he's like, no, she was not. She was clearly doting on this guy. And, Toby argues against that and says, no, she was giving you the opportunity to confront Cesario and win her heart in this noble, manly way. And, of course, poor Sir Andrew falls for it. And Sir Toby tells him to challenge Cesario to a duel, write a letter, etc., etc., and so he runs off to go do this. Sir Toby then here shares that he thinks this whole thing will be fine. He's not really worried about it. And he says, "For Andrew, if he were open and you find so much blood in his liver as will clog the foot of a flea, I will eat the rest of his anatomy." Which is another reference, and I keep pointing them out. I just think they're interesting, and I think they give us an insight into the way this time period thought of anatomy. But anyway, this is another reference to the bodily humors. So cowards were supposed to have white livers, or livers with barely any blood in them. So he's saying, don't worry about it, Sir Andrew is a coward. He also doesn't think Cesario will put up much of a fight either, and how right he is. What little of a man Cesario is. So anyway, as he goes, as he goes. As Maria comes in, as Sir Andrew leaves, Maria says she's got a bit of much awaited gossip. She's like, come on, you guys, it's worked. Malvolio is dressed in yellow stockings that are cross-gartered, and he's about to approach Olivia. So disaster certainly waits. We have to come see this. Come on, let's go. These comics here, before we move on, are from Good Tickle Brain, and it's a very, very good, very funny, accessible webcomic about Shakespeare. Okay, then next we have Act 3, Scene 3, and this is a short scene, but it sets up a lot of important things for later. So Antonio explains to Sebastian that he can't just go wandering around in the city of Illyria because he has enemies from a naval battle that he participated in, and he confronted Orsino's men and beat them, and so now he's worried that if they knew he were in town, they'd certainly retaliate. So he gives Sebastian money because he knows Sebastian wants to go touring around, and says, you should do it. Here, if you want to buy souvenirs, if you see something, take this money. He's very doting on him. He's like, I love you. And Sebastian's like, cool, man, thanks. And they do take the money and agree that Antonio will get an inn at the Elephant, and they'll meet up later. So both of these things become very important later, don't they? Both the fact that Antonio gave him money and the fact that Antonio is worried about being in the city. Okay. So Act 3, Scene 4, one of the most famous of the play, and a heck of a lot happens in it. So we're going to break it up into two parts, although you could, obviously, as you know, you read, break it down into many, many, many parts. Lots of things happen. One question, this just occurred to me to mention, that might be interesting to think about is why is all of this in one scene rather than being split up into different scenes? You certainly could split it, but I think the fact that it all happens at one time indicates that the momentum of the play is building. You know, the action is starting to build and build and build. The wheels are rolling and we're speeding up on our way downhill towards the conclusion, or perhaps speeding up the hill towards the climax and then down. Anyway, my metaphor is running away with me, but I think you get what I'm trying to say. So, the first part of the scene you watched a rendition for this week. That was pretty funny, I think. Seeing Malvolio come in and try to woo poor Olivia, who has no idea what he's doing or why he's doing it. And there are dozens of different ways that you can dress your Malvolio up in these yellow cross-gartered stockings. Yellow being a color that Olivia doesn't like, which is why they put it in there, as they mentioned, and then cross-gartered being a style of the time that Olivia also didn't like. It's kind of fun to Google if you just Google 12th Night, yellow cross-gartered, that sort of thing. You'll see all the numerous ways that actors have done this, and I found it enjoyable. A fun way to spend a Saturday afternoon? No. Anyway, so Olivia calls it for him because he's serious and he's polite, and that sort of disposition suits her right now because she's feeling down about Cesario not returning her love. Also, for the purposes of this scene, it's helpful to know that sad means both serious. It could mean either serious or sorrowful, either one. And so Malvolio takes it to mean sorrowful when Olivia is saying serious. So here again, another reference to the bodily humors happens because Malvolio says that he is not black in his mind, which means melancholy, brought on by black bile, as we've talked about. I'm not black in my mind, though yellow in my legs. To wear yellow hose could mean to be jealous. So, though I wear yellow hose, I'm not sad or jealous. You know, it's a little awkward. He's saying it awkwardly, but he's obviously trying to draw attention to his stockings and say, look what I'm sporting for you, babe. He makes a reference to her Roman hand, aka her handwriting in the letter. And Olivia, thinking that he's unwell, asks him if he'll retire to bed. Of course, he misreads this as an invitation and saying, yeah, I'll definitely go to bed with you. And he's surly, he's mean about Maria. which he calls her a daw, which is another word for a crow. Saying mocking jays, mocking birds associating with crows, referring to himself as a higher pecking order. Puns, bird puns. Which follows the instructions of the letter to be rude to the servants. So then this is like he reiterates from her letter that line, some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. And Olivia cries out here, heaven restore thee! In every single adaptation I've seen, he thrusts himself upon her, which is, again, we talked about last week, being a crude joke. So anyway, that's that half, and she leaves Malvolio, who she really thinks needs help. I think it's important to remember Olivia likes Malvolio. She's one of the only characters who does. But she thinks he needs help, and she leaves him in the care of her cousin Sir Toby, who certainly won't do anything bad, right? Because he likes Malvolio. No. And Malvolio is fine with it because he thinks this is all according to her plan that she laid out in her letter. But Toby, of course, decides to treat him as a madman, aka like plagued by demons, and he has him bound and put in a dark room. Fabian, who's with Sir Toby at this point, has a great line here. He says, if this were played upon the stage now, I could condemn it as improbable fiction. That's a fun little aside to the audience. Obviously, being that it was being played on stage. So now Sir Andrew enters, and Sir Toby reads this very non-confrontational, very ridiculous letter that Toby wrote. He reads it aloud. And when they learn that Cesario's nearby, Toby says, go and attack him when he comes out. So Andrew runs off, and we learn that Toby has decided not to deliver the letter beforehand because he knows that if Cesario reads it, he will immediately know that Sir Andrew is an idiot and won't fear him at all. A clodpole. He says he'll know that he's a clodpole, which is a great word. Wonderful insult. I think we should bring that one back. Maybe not. Maybe don't call your friends clodpoles. Anyway, don't listen to me. Instead, he says he's going to tell Cesario face to face. And he's going to over-exaggerate Sir Andrew and Sir Andrew's abilities and ferocity, and that way they'll both be so frightened of each other that the fight will be like a cockatrice or a basilisk. I don't know if you've ever heard of either one of those. A basilisk, in Harry Potter, could kill with a look alone. And so, meaning just the sight of each other will be enough to scare the wits out of both of them. And so that's Sir Toby's ingenious plan. So, second half of Act 3, Scene 4, we have Olivia and Viola enter, right as everybody else leaves. And Olivia cries that she has laid her heart bare to an unmoved man. I said too much unto a heart of stone. Great line. And she's laid her honor carelessly down with it. She says here that there's a part of me that wants to fault me for this fault of mine. But so strongly, I feel it so strongly, I feel this fault and believe in this fault so strongly that it mocks the part of me that would admonish it. So kind of, I know better. I know better, but even though I know better, I don't care because I'm choosing this strong feeling over rational thought. So Cesario / Viola says, with the same behavior that your passion bears goes on my master's griefs. So he's still arguing for Cesario here. Cesario is still arguing for Orsino here, saying, yes, you feel this strongly, that's how my master feels about you. And she's just like, here, wear this jewel, it's my picture. Don't refuse her too, because she doesn't have my voice to bother you. Which is this, she's cutting herself down here and begging for a little bit of praise. If I'm so wearisome to me, at least take my picture, because you can at the very least admit that I'm pretty, right? And so this version of me won't do the irritating things that you don't like, but you could still look at it, right? She can't seem to help herself here. She's definitely a smitten kitten. She then bids him come back tomorrow and leaves. And before Viola can defend herself, Cesario can defend herself, Sir Toby bursts in to tell Cesario that Sir Andrew will challenge him. He goes on, like he said he would, about how fierce he is, and now poor Viola is terrified. She's like, oh my gosh, what is happening? I'm getting into a gentleman's duel, and I'm not a dude. I don't know how to fence. I don't know how to fight. What am I gonna do? Just, freaking out. And so she leaves, and Sir Toby then tells Sir Andrew that he talked to Cesario, and Cesario is a very devil. Says he'll mess you up, man. Like, this is gonna go so badly. Woo! He's rough. So now, effectively, both sides are terrified, just as Toby planned it. And the fight is about to start. There's a lot of good humor to be found here in two people who don't want to fight each other at all. They're both terrified of each other, and they're being goaded into this fight. It's very funny to see on stage. I'll see if I can find a good version and stick it in the extras folder for you. Anyway, so during this pathetic fight, the fight's about to start. They draw, and Antonio enters and mistakes Cesario for Sebastian. And now, of course, Antonio is a fighter. We know this because that's why he has enemies in the city, is that he's an excellent seaman and fighter. And so he leaps to the defense against poor Andrew. Making it even more terrifying than it was before. And of course, now Toby's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What's happening? Officers come in to break up the fight, and of course they recognize poor Antonio, and they grab him just like Antonio thought they would. And Antonio asks Cesario for his purse back, for his money back, since he's so in need. I came to defend you. I know I gave you this money, but they're dragging me off. I need the money now. I hate to ask for it back, but can I have it back? And Cesario is like, huh? Who are you exactly? And you never lent me any money. I'm not really sure what's happening. Of course, Antonio is like, excuse me? I did all this for you. I gave you money. I saved you. I pulled you from the jaws of death. I've done all this for you. And you're going to pretend like you've never seen me before in your life? And she's like, I feel very badly for you. Here's a little bit of money, but I've never seen you. And he's just like, fine, officers, take me away. This is awful. Who knew that Sebastian would scorn and spurn my love so horribly? And Viola gets excited. She says, but did he just say Sebastian? Does that mean that my brother still lives? There's this little bit of hope, if somebody mistook me for him, does that mean that he's here? She recognizes, she says there's this really great reflection, that her brother lives on in her reflection. Every time she looks in the mirror, her brother is alive as she's taken on his, she reiterates that she's taken on his persona and his manner of dress and that sort of thing, and reflects on how wonderful it would be should the tempest, the storm prove to be kind instead of horrible, and to have not taken her brother at all, after all. So she leaves, and Sir Toby then assuages Sir Andrew, saying, oh my gosh, did you see how dishonest Cesario was? What a coward he proved to be? He abandoned his friend. That was pretty terrible, and pretended not to know him. You gotta beat him up. And of course, and this bolsters Sir Andrew, who's, just a little gullible bunny this whole time, and he resolves to chase down Cesario and fight him. So the fight's still on. Now we've finally finished our big Act 3 scene, and we're moving into Act 4, Scene 1. And the fool is wandering around and encounters Sebastian, of course thinking that he's Cesario, and says, hey, I've been sent by Olivia to come get you. For some reason, Sebastian has no idea what the fool is talking about. Wondrous strange. Sebastian gives the fool money, to go away, basically. And Feste cleverly begs more of it, which we've seen him do before, saying, oh yes, wise men give money to fools. It gives them a good reputation, but only if they give a lot. Yeah. So at this point, Sir Andrew enters, bent on beating up Cesario, also mistakes Sebastian for Cesario, and encounters a man who has no idea what's going on. Sir Andrew then strikes him, and Sebastian, defending himself, is like, oh my gosh, the people of Illyria are insane. What is happening here? He draws his dagger, ready for a real fight, and at this point, Feste is like, you know what? That'd be a really great time to go grab Olivia and sort this out. Let her know that this fight is happening between the people staying in her home and the guy that she loves. So he runs off to go do that. Sir Toby holds Sebastian's arm, that has the dagger, but Sebastian breaks away and draws his sword as well. A gentleman carried both a dagger and a sword. So it's about to get real. Except for now, Olivia enters and commands Sir Toby to hold. And she rails at them and sends them off, out of my sight, all of you. But not, I hope you're not offended, dear Cesario. Rudesby begone, like you vagabonds, you rude fellows. Get out of here. They all, of course, scatter because Olivia is a lady boss and she rules her home with an iron fist, except for all the stuff that happens behind her back when she's busy, mooning over Cesario. So she then, after everybody runs away, goes about trying to apologize and make amends to Sebastian, thinking, of course, that he is Cesario, and, dotes on him, does everything that she's been doing to Cesario up until this point, but does it to Sebastian, and asks him to come with her to her house, begs him not to say no, knowing that, Cesario has turned her down many, many, many times. Sebastian, of course, doesn't know what to make of this, and says, what relish is this? Relish being, like this good, sweet thing. This dotage, this woman, what is happening? How runs the stream? Am I mad, or else is this a dream? Illyria is full of nut jobs. But this one he's okay with. Let fancy still my sense in Lethe sleep. Lethe is the river of forgetfulness in the underworld in Greek mythology. So he's saying, if this be thus to dream, let me sleep. Let this keep on going. I'm fine with this part. And he's, unlike Cesario, he's plenty happy to go with Olivia. She says, nay, come, I prithee, would thou be ruled by me? To which he replies, madam, I will. Woo! Happy all around, finally. So when Sir Andrew and Sir Toby... Woo! Jumping ahead. Oh, I almost forgot. In that last one, in case you don't know or haven't seen it, the movie She's the Man with Channing Tatum and Amanda Bynes is a modern adaptation of Twelfth Night. Now you know. It's a pretty good movie, actually. It's quite funny. Act 4, Scene 2, we've got the judgment of Malvolio. Under the direction from Sir Toby, the fool disguises himself as a parish priest and visits the imprisoned Malvolio as himself. This is an interesting scene, I think, as a whole, because, and this is where we're going to insert a lot of Kaki's opinion, but I think the way that you enjoy the scene largely depends on how you feel about Malvolio, if you feel sympathetic towards him, or if you think that he had it coming, kind of thing. Because if you have no sympathy, no heart for Malvolio, then this scene can just be funny. But, I don't know. To me, it's also a little weird because he's locked up and being treated like a madman and being purposefully misunderstood by everybody, and that just seems rough. Anyway, in the lower picture here, you can see how they might have used the trapdoor in the stage to as a potential holding cell, as a potential prison for Malvolio on stage. In the beginning we talked about how they had a surprise door that ghosts would come out of, or the way that they would make people disappear and things like that was through this door in the middle of the stage. And so this is a great example of how that might be used for this particular instance. Pardon me. Act 4, Scene 3. We get to see more of Sebastian and Olivia, which is enjoyable, I think, because Olivia is a great character. She's not unworthy of love. She just happened to pick the one person in the play that doesn't love her, basically. And so it's fun to see her dotage on Sebastian be requited. So Sebastian comments on his state, has his own little soliloquy here, a little monologue, says, you know, okay, she's not insane, I'm not insane, but something crazy is happening here, and I'm wonderfully amazed at my new situation. Then, of course, when Olivia comes out and asks him if he'll go with her to become engaged, to enter a formal betrothal, he readily agrees. And he has this scene is started with this great line here. This is the air, that is the glorious sun. This pearl she gave me, I do feel it and see it. And though 'tis wonder that enwraps me thus, yet it is not madness. I like it. I like it. Olivia likes it. And this is Helena Bonham Carter as Olivia from the 1996 movie version of Twelfth Night. And I put her here because I could, and because she looks so pretty. All right. So now we are at the end of the play, Act 5, Scene 1, a.k.a. where everything gets sorted out. We've got Orsino, who starts by being enraged that Cesario betrayed him with Olivia. Antonio is enraged that that Sebastian betrayed him. And Cesario is like, no, I am super faithful to you, Orsino, and I don't know you, Sebastian. I have done neither of these harmful things to you people. It's not true. What's going on? Olivia is like, no, we're engaged. And Cesario says, we are absolutely not engaged. What are you talking about? To which Olivia sends for the Holy Father, who says, yeah, you guys are engaged. I engaged you just the other day. So everybody's super confused. Sir Toby and Sir Andrew enter bleeding and say, this guy beat me up. Cesario is getting accused from every different angle. And then Sebastian enters and clears everything up. This is interesting because in a small microcosm of the play, we see all of the disambiguation occur in one scene, as well as all of the accusations, you know. Everything is cleared up by Viola and Sebastian finally being on stage at the same time. And so when Sebastian enters and they're both there, I'm sure you can imagine, it's very much a huh kind of moment where everybody is looking at this set of twins in astonishment. So he comes in, he professes that he's like, yes, I do love Olivia, and we are engaged. Antonio, it's so good to see you. How have you been? What's happened? I didn't see you at the Elephant. We didn't meet up. What's up? And then of course he recognizes himself in Cesario, and the two siblings are united once more. One very interesting thing of note: the true resolution of this play, you know, what it pivots on, what began it and what ends it, is the separation and then the reunification of brother and sister. And as such, as it being the main plot mechanism, the fulcrum upon which this play turns, this moment, you know, has to be so important within the play. Recall again how highly they both spoke of each other, and the sad longing that they each expressed at different parts whenever they would, within, you know, the realm of this funny, you know, jovial, joking, love-obsessed play, when they would recall or reflect upon their sibling with sorrow. So, what a wonderful reunion this is. I would personally argue, Caggie's opinion, but strongly argue for this being the most moving moment of the play. More so than Sebastian and Olivia getting married, or getting engaged rather, more so than Orsino and Viola getting, becoming engaged, more so than any of these things. To me, that is like the wonderful true love moment of the play, is when brother and sister see each other again for the first time alive. To find a sibling that you thought was dead, it's a miracle. So, the second that Orsino realizes that Cesario is a girl, he proposes to her, which really does confirm all of that tension, that we saw earlier, between the two of them when he thought she was a man. And both sets of lovers are set to wed on the same day, very fitting conclusion, and the play ends with Feste singing a song. So, now that we've read two comedies, let's talk about the similarities and the qualities of a comedy in general. First of all, characters are safe. There is a happy ending. It's going to end well. We know this as an audience. Human beings are bumbling fools, but the forgiving spirit of comedy itself leaves the characters in one piece and the audience exhausted from laughing. Because that's the thing, isn't it? You feel safe laughing at their foibles, at their problems, at their missteps. Because when you know something is a comedy, you are able to get more enjoyment out of the misery of the characters. Precisely because you know they are ultimately safe. That nothing too terrible will happen to them. It's a safe place for the audience because it's a safe place for the characters. And this works for movies these days too. When you laugh at people who injure themselves or do different things that are particularly bad, if you know that the movie is a comedy, that the things are going to be okay, it makes that okay. You're not worried about them in the moment like you would be if you were watching a drama or a suspense, where people's well-being are always susceptible to any number of things. There's no promise that people will be safe in a tragedy. So, second of all, desire and its fulfillment. Now, comedies are about this. They're about a fulfillment of some sort of human desire, mostly love and that sort of thing in Shakespeare's comedies. But that's the big, those are the plots of the plays. Desire and then reaching its fulfillment. Which again falls sort of under the category of characters are safe. You know that they're going to get good things in the end. So, the obstacles in the play for the desire and the fulfillment differ, between these two plays that we've seen. But they're also similar in that they're internal, caused by the characters themselves. The other option is external forces acting against the characters, which would be more like A Midsummer Night's Dream, where it's the fairies that are causing all of the mishaps, rather than things that the characters did to themselves. A more modern example, I think, would be like The Hangover or Superbad, have external obstacles for the characters to overcome. But, again, taking it back to the characters being safe, crazy, outlandish, ridiculous things happen to the people in these movies, but you're never actually seriously worried that anyone is going to come to serious permanent harm. I just keep coming back to that. I think that's when I started thinking about this, when I realized this, it really it opened my eyes to the differences in genre. Just think about the fact when you go to watch a movie in the evening, and you say, what would you like to watch? You have an idea in your head of what kind of movie you would like to see. I'm really feeling like watching a romantic comedy, even though you might never have seen Made in Manhattan, or 2 Weeks Notice, or The Proposal, or whatever it happens to be. The general, I got hair flying everywhere. The general plot and layout of the story, and you know that it's going to end happily, and that's what you're in the mood for. You're in the mood to laugh and smile and have your heart feel full. If you're not in the mood for that, you might be in the mood for a drama or, a sad movie, that sort of thing. even if you don't know the plot, of road to perdition, you know, or I'm trying to think of others. Whoa. I don't know. Anyway, other movies that have those sorts of dark. The Machinist. That's the one I was trying to think of. Whew! The Machinist. These movies that have a darker tone and a darker plot. You don't know exactly the plot of the movie, but you know what to expect. And so the idea of genre being a set of bookends for what the action is going to be in the play or in the movie or in the whatever, setting the tone for the entire interaction between the audience and the performance. So, finally, woo, going from chaos to order. I think this one is a little self-evident, and you know, Shakespeare's comedies too also tend to end in marriage. But in a comedy, things go from being chaotic and misunderstood and crazy to all being all right and wrapped up in the end. So you might have thought, you know, why wrap up a romance in a comedy? You know, we consider the romantic comedy genre to be a little bit different than a Shakespearean comedy. You know, like the Shakespearean comedies are kind of just thought of as romances, I think, in a lot of different ways. But in this play and reading this one and Much Ado About Nothing, I think you can see how much humor is there and how much even slapstick you can see, and wordplay and banter, and it's funny and it's enjoyable. So why wrap up a romance in a comedy? Well, I might argue that Shakespeare perceives that love is both foolish, making us do silly, ridiculous things in the name of love. So lots of silly, you know, fodder for silliness and for humor and laughter and everything. But it's also a profound and character-changing experience, which I think we would all agree is the case. And so romantic comedies are thus both funny and moving, even today, especially today. Okay, so a little footnote from our last slide. Everything ends happily, except for Malvolio. He's the only one who is unhappy at the end of this play. Do you end the play feeling worried about him? They seriously forgot him in a dungeon. I think that happens to characters from time to time, even in a comedy, if they're villains. You know, they get what's coming to them. But is he a real villain? Does he deserve his fate? He's actually a huge outlier in Shakespeare's comedies simply because he winds up so unhappy at the end and just storms off, really hurt. I'll be revenged against all of you. You all are the worst. And he you know, storms off. He doesn't make amends. He doesn't forgive them or anything like that. Olivia's like, oh my gosh, you were seriously tricked. This is a crazy thing that happened to you. And he's just like, you guys suck, and storms off. So how do you feel about that? How does that jive with the rest of the play for you? In case I didn't mention it last time, he is a Puritan. And Puritans well, nowadays, but also in early modern England, they don't believe in drinking or merrymaking, and they definitely don't approve of theater houses. They saw them as centers of vice, promoting all sorts of bad things like partying and drinking. And during the English Civil War in the 1640s, the Puritans actually took over the government, which was a couple decades after Shakespeare's death, but the Puritans shut down the playhouses. So that's kind of an example of how Puritans felt about plays at all. And so, of course, this Puritan in this play is not going to be depicted particularly well, perhaps because theater troupes did not like Puritans, because Puritans did not like them. Anyway, the theater houses actually remained closed through the end of the Civil War. So in a way, you might say that Malvolio did get his revenge against all of these revelers, by which, of course, I do not mean that I think that Shakespeare could see into the future, just that the world is a funny place. Anyway, I wanted to point it out because sometimes I feel sorry for Malvolio. Okay. That is it for this week. that is it for this play. How did you like it? How does it compare with Much Ado About Nothing? Did you like it more? Did you like it less? Which one was your jam? Are you ready for more matter and less mirth? If so, yay, because we're about to move into the tragedies soon. Anyway, the rest of the stuff on this page are just funny things that I enjoy as a giant Shakespeare nerd that I didn't have a place for anywhere else. So they're here for you to enjoy, should you desire, or what you will. Okay, I'm done. Have a great week. I'll see you next time.